The starship Horizon floated silently above the glowing blue world of Allura. The crew inside had trained for months to make contact with the Allurans, a wise and peaceful alien race known for their harmony with nature. For centuries, no one from Earth had ever spoken to an Alluran face to face. Many people back home believed that humans were not ready to meet a civilization so advanced in spirit and thought. But the mission was sent with hope that humanity could learn and share peacefully. Among the small team of envoys stood David, a young diplomat chosen for his calm mind and honest heart. He had studied the Alluran language, their customs, and their history for many years. Still, when the starship descended into the crystal valleys of the planet, he felt nervous. He had seen pictures of Allura's shimmering forests and floating gardens, but the real thing was far more beautiful. The air sparkled with soft light that came from the crystal trees, and every breeze carried a musical tone that felt alive. When the landing ramp opened, David stepped out first. His boots touched the glass-like ground that glowed under his feet. Waiting for them were the Alluran Council and the royal family. The Allurans were tall, graceful beings with pale silver skin and bright eyes that seemed to hold the light of stars. They wore robes that shimmered like water under moonlight. At the center of the group stood Princess Arya, daughter of the High Queen. Her long silver hair moved gently in the breeze, and her calm gaze met David's. David bowed respectfully. "We come from Earth to bring friendship and understanding," he said clearly. Princess Arya nodded. "Welcome, humans of Earth," she replied in a voice that sounded like soft music. "Our hearts are open to peace." That first meeting was formal, yet there was a quiet spark of curiosity between them. The humans were guided into the Hall of Harmony, a great chamber built from living crystal. The walls glowed with colors that changed with emotion. David noticed that the lights brightened whenever Arya spoke, as if the crystals responded to her gentle presence. During the welcoming ceremony, Arya asked questions about Earth. She wanted to know how humans lived, how they built their cities, and how they treated their planet. David answered honestly. He spoke of Earth's beauty, but also of its struggles, of how humans sometimes harmed nature without meaning to. Arya listened carefully. She seemed both saddened and intrigued. When the ceremony ended, Arya approached David as the others left the hall. "Your people must carry a heavy heart," she said quietly, "to live with such noise and still search for peace." David looked at her with respect. "We are still learning," he admitted. "That is why we are here. We wish to understand," Arya smiled gently. "Then perhaps you have come to the right place." That was how their first conversation began. Over the next few days, David attended many meetings with the council. The humans wanted to learn about Alluran energy crystals that produced clean power, and the Allurans were interested in Earth's history and art. David often found himself speaking with Arya after each session. She asked questions that touched his heart in unexpected ways. "Do humans dream when they sleep?" she asked one evening as they walked through a garden of glowing vines. "Yes," David said. "Sometimes our dreams show what we wish for. Sometimes they show our fears. Do you dream of peace?" "Every day," he replied softly. Arya looked up at the night sky where two moons shone together. "Then you are not so different from us." Their talks became the quiet moments David looked forward to most. He admired her kindness and wisdom. Arya found his honesty refreshing because many beings who visited Allura in the past spoke only to impress. David spoke simply, but his words carried truth. One afternoon, Arya invited him to visit the Crystal Grove, a sacred place where her people went to meditate. The grove was filled with tall trees made of pure crystal that glowed in rhythm with the heartbeats of those who entered. David placed his hand on one of the trunks, and it shimmered brightly. Arya smiled. "It feels your sincerity," she said. "The crystals reveal what lies in one's heart." David watched the light move through the branches above them. "It is beautiful," he said. "Your world is alive in every way." "So is yours," she replied. "But your people must learn to listen again." Her words stayed in his mind for the rest of the day. The more time they spent together, the more David began to understand the Allurans. They lived not by rules of power but by balance. Every act, every word was guided by harmony. Even their music was created by the wind and the motion of light through crystal instruments. To David, it felt like standing inside a dream, yet he also sensed the weight of responsibility on Arya's shoulders. As the princess, she carried the duty to protect this harmony. One night, a storm unlike any he had seen swept across the planet. It was not made of rain or thunder, but of pure energy. The sky turned violet as waves of radiant light struck the ground. The humans had been warned about such storms, but this one came earlier than expected. The camp's shields began to flicker. David heard shouts over the comms as energy surges hit the power lines. He ran outside to help, but as he turned a corner, he saw Arya and 2 guards trapped on a bridge of glass that was cracking under the storm's pressure. Without hesitation, he rushed toward them. The air hummed so loudly that it hurt to move, but he forced his way through. "Princess, come this way," he called out. Arya's guards tried to stabilize the bridge, but the crystals beneath them were breaking apart. One guard fell through a gap but caught the edge in time. Arya reached for him, but another surge of energy struck the bridge, shaking it violently. David leaped forward, grabbed her hand, and pulled her back just as the bridge split in 2. They both fell onto the solid platform below, breathing heavily. For a moment they lay still as the storm roared around them. Then Arya turned her head and looked at him. Her eyes glowed faintly in the lightning light. "You risked your life for me," she said softly. "I would do it again," David replied. No one should face danger alone. The storm slowly began to fade, leaving the sky calm once more. The Alluran guards bowed to him in gratitude. When they returned to the city, news of his bravery spread quickly. Many Allurans who had doubted humans began to see them differently. They saw courage, loyalty, and compassion. The next day, the High Queen herself thanked David. "You have earned our trust," she said. Few outsiders have ever shown such selfless strength, but for David, the real reward was the way Arya looked at him now. There was warmth in her gaze, something deeper than gratitude. It was the beginning of a connection that neither fully understood, but both could feel. As the sun set over the shining valleys of Allura, David stood beside Arya on the balcony of the palace. The air was calm again and the sky glowed with colors that changed like the surface of water. "You are unlike any human I have met," Arya said quietly. "You are unlike anyone I have ever known," he answered. They stood there in silence, watching the light fade into night. The crystal towers reflected the stars and the world seemed at peace again. But inside both their hearts something new had begun to grow. A quiet bond that would soon change not only their lives but the fate of 2 worlds. Far above, the stars shone brighter than ever, as if the universe itself had noticed what had begun between them. Days passed since the storm that had shaken the skies of Allura. The city of crystal towers was calm again, shining under the soft light of its twin moons. The people of Allura spoke often about the bravery of the human named David. Many who once saw humans as fragile and careless now looked upon them with new respect. Among all those who admired him, none felt the change more deeply than Princess Arya. She often thought of that night, of how David had reached for her hand when the bridge began to fall. The memory of his grip, steady and warm, returned to her again and again. She had met many beings from other worlds before, but none had acted with such instinct to protect another without thought of himself. That act had touched her heart more than she wished to admit. David also could not forget that moment. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw the light of the storm in her silver eyes looking back at him. He tried to tell himself that his feelings were only admiration for her courage and wisdom. Yet he knew there was something deeper growing inside him. The next morning, Arya invited David to walk with her through the gardens of the palace. The air was filled with the scent of glowing flowers that opened when touched by sunlight. The paths were made of glassy stone that reflected their steps like mirrors. "You seem thoughtful," Arya said as they walked slowly. David smiled faintly. "I am thinking about your people. You live in such peace and beauty. I wish humans could learn this way of life." Arya looked ahead, her hands folded in front of her. "It took us thousands of years to find balance. Once we too had conflict, but we learned that true power lies not in force but in unity. Perhaps your people are walking that same path." "I hope so," David said. "Sometimes it feels like we forget how to listen to each other." She turned her gaze toward him. "Then perhaps you can remind them. You carry a quiet strength, David of Earth. It is not the strength of battle but of heart." He felt a warmth rise inside him at her words. He did not know what to say, so he only nodded in respect. They reached the edge of the garden where a small pool reflected the morning light. Around it grew tall crystal plants that hummed softly, creating a sound like distant singing. Arya knelt beside the water and touched the surface with her fingers. The pool glowed gently, "This place is called the Mirror of Souls," she said. "It shows what one truly feels inside. Many come here seeking peace." David hesitated, but then knelt beside her. When he looked into the water, he saw his reflection. For a moment it shimmered and changed. He saw himself standing beside Arya, both of them surrounded by light. It was not a dream or illusion. It felt real, like a glimpse of something possible. He looked at her, wondering if she had seen the same. But Arya's face was calm, though her eyes held a trace of wonder. "What did you see?" she asked quietly. "I saw hope," David said truthfully. "Hope for both our worlds," Arya smiled. "Then that is a good vision." Their bond deepened after that day. Whenever the humans visited the Alluran Council, Arya often sat beside David to translate and explain her people's traditions. He admired how she spoke with kindness even when the discussions grew tense. The Allurans wanted to share knowledge but feared losing their balance. The humans wanted to learn but sometimes spoke with impatience. Yet Arya managed to guide both sides toward understanding. One evening, she invited David to witness a ceremony called the Dance of Light. It was held at the top of the highest tower, where thousands of crystals formed a giant ring that floated in the sky. When the ceremony began, the Allurans gathered around the ring and raised their hands. Streams of light rose from their palms and connected in the air, forming patterns that shifted like living art. The sky turned into a field of colors that moved with their emotions. David stood among them, awestruck. Arya stepped forward, her robe glowing softly. She moved gracefully, her gestures forming waves of silver light that flowed around the ring. Every motion she made was filled with emotion and purpose. When her eyes met his, the light around her grew brighter, as if responding to something invisible between them. After the ceremony ended, David approached her. "It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen," he said. She looked at him with a gentle smile. "It is not just light. It is the expression of our souls. The crystals respond to feeling. When we dance, they reflect what is within us." "Then your heart must be full of light," he said softly. Arya lowered her gaze, hiding a small smile. "Perhaps yours is not far behind." Their words lingered in the cool night air. Neither spoke again for a while. They simply stood together, watching the lights fade across the horizon. Days turned into weeks. The cooperation between humans and Allurans grew stronger. The scientists shared knowledge about medicine and technology. The Allurans taught the humans how to use energy without harm to the planet. David spent most of his time working beside Arya, translating messages and solving misunderstandings. The council grew to trust him deeply, but not everyone was pleased. Some older members of the council began to whisper that the princess was becoming too close to the human envoy. They feared that emotions could cloud her judgment. To them, tradition was sacred, and any bond with an outsider was seen as a risk. Arya heard these whispers but chose silence. She believed that friendship between species was the future, yet a quiet worry settled in her heart. One evening, she sat alone in her chamber, looking out over the glowing city. The moonlight touched her face as she thought of all that had happened. When she closed her eyes, she saw David's face, calm and steady, filled with sincerity. A feeling she could not name began to rise within her. She placed her hand over her heart, wondering if this was the flame of connection her ancestors once spoke of. It was said to appear only once in a lifetime, binding two souls across any distance. At that same hour, David stood on the terrace below, gazing at the stars. He thought of home and how far he was from Earth, yet he did not feel alone. Something about Allura made him feel complete. More than that, something about Arya gave him strength and peace. The next morning, Arya invited him to accompany her on a journey to the outer valley where the oldest crystal trees grew. It was said that these trees recorded the memories of the planet itself. They traveled together in a small sky vessel that glided above the shining rivers. When they arrived, the valley was silent except for the soft hum of the crystals. The trees were massive, their branches stretching high into the clouds. Each branch glowed with faint blue light and the ground sparkled beneath their feet. Arya placed her hand on one of the trees. These trees remember every sound, every step, every emotion that has touched this world. They are the guardians of our history. David did the same and felt a gentle vibration through his hand. Images flashed before his eyes, scenes of peace, joy, and unity. He saw Illyrans working together, their faces calm and bright. Then he saw something new. A vision of humans and Allurans standing side by side, building together. It was a future he wished to see become real. When the vision faded, he turned to Arya. "They showed me something," he said quietly. "A time when our worlds walked together." Arya nodded slowly. "Then the trees see your heart as true." They stood there for a long time, the light around them pulsing gently. The bond between them no longer needed words. It was silent but strong, like the rhythm of two hearts beating in harmony. As they prepared to return to the city, a gentle rain of light began to fall from the sky. Each drop sparkled before touching the ground. Arya looked up at the glowing rain and said softly, "Allura is blessing our friendship." David smiled at her side. "Then may it last forever." That night, when they returned to the palace, the council awaited them with serious faces. Rumors had already spread that the princess and the human envoy had spent the day alone in the sacred valley. Some elders frowned, while others remained silent. The High Queen's expression was calm but unreadable. Arya bowed respectfully, ready to explain. David stood beside her, steady and unafraid. The bond they had formed was not something they could hide any longer. It was no longer just friendship. It was the beginning of something greater, a connection that would soon challenge every rule of tradition and every limit of distance between two worlds. The morning after their return from the sacred valley, the palace of Allura stood quiet but tense. The crystal towers reflected a pale light that seemed colder than before. David could feel the change in the air the moment he entered the council chamber. The usual warm glow of the crystals was dim. Around the large round table sat the elders of Allura, their silver eyes fixed on him and Princess Arya. At the center, the High Queen sat in silence. Her presence was calm yet powerful. She looked at her daughter for a long moment before speaking. "Princess Arya, my child, the council has called this meeting to discuss the growing bond between you and the human envoy. Many among us feel concern. We welcome friendship, but some believe that feelings of the heart may cloud the path of duty." Arya bowed her head respectfully. "Mother, our bond is built on understanding. David and I seek only peace between our worlds." An elder with a long silver robe spoke next. "Understanding is good, but emotions can lead to distraction. The connection between Allura and Earth must remain pure. If the princess forms a bond too deep, it may affect the balance of our people." David listened carefully, choosing his words with care. "I respect your traditions," he said calmly. "I never meant to bring trouble. My only wish is to serve the mission of peace." The Queen's gaze softened slightly. "I do not doubt your sincerity, David of Earth, but you must see our concern. The princess carries a great duty. The bond you share touches more than two hearts. It touches the harmony of two civilizations." David nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. I promise to honor your customs." The council ended soon after, but the mood in the palace remained heavy. As David walked through the corridors of shining crystal, he felt the weight of every glance from the guards and servants. Some looked at him with respect for saving the princess. Others looked with quiet judgment, as if wondering what place a human had beside their royal heir. Later that evening, Arya found him standing in the garden near the Mirror of Souls. The pool reflected the orange glow of the setting sun. She walked toward him, her steps soft against the glass stones. "They think we have gone too far," she said quietly. David turned to her. "I know. I did not wish for this to cause trouble for you." "It is not trouble," she replied, shaking her head gently. "It is truth. The council fears what they do not understand. They have lived for centuries believing emotions bring imbalance. Yet I see strength in connection, not weakness." He looked at her, his voice low. "And what do you see when you look at me?" Arya hesitated for a moment, then answered softly. "I see a heart that carries courage without pride. I see a soul that seeks harmony even in chaos. That is something my people must learn from yours." Her words filled him with quiet warmth, but he also felt the pain of uncertainty. He knew that their worlds might not accept what was forming between them. Still, he could not deny the truth in her eyes. The next few days passed slowly. The council continued their meetings, now with greater caution. Some members suggested that the humans should shorten their stay. The Queen refused to make any hasty decision, saying that unity could not grow through fear. Meanwhile, David focused on his duties, helping the scientists and diplomats finalize trade agreements. Yet whenever he was not working, his thoughts returned to Arya. Every word she had spoken stayed in his mind. He admired her wisdom, her calm strength, and the light she carried wherever she went. One evening he was walking through the lower gardens when he found Arya sitting beside a small crystal fountain. The soft sound of flowing light filled the air. She was gazing at the stars above, lost in thought. David stopped a few steps behind her. "May I join you?" he asked politely. Arya smiled faintly. "You always ask when you already know the answer." He sat beside her and they watched the twin moons rise. For a long time, neither spoke. The peace of the moment felt deeper than words. Finally, Arya said, "Do you ever miss your home?" "Every day," he answered. "But sometimes I think I have found another kind of home here. Not a place, but a feeling." Her eyes met his. "A feeling of belonging?" He nodded. "Yes, that is the word." Arya looked away, her voice gentle. "Perhaps that is what connects us. You search for belonging. I search for understanding. Together we find both." The night deepened around them and the stars seemed to glow brighter, as if listening. In that quiet moment, the distance between human and Alluran faded away. They were no longer envoy and princess. They were simply two souls sharing the same sky. The next morning, David received a message from his commander aboard the Horizon. The humans on the ship had heard of the Council's concerns and wanted to speak with him directly. He went to the communication chamber where the holographic image of Commander Lewis appeared. "David," the commander said, his tone serious, "there are reports that you have grown close to one of the Allurans, the princess herself. Is that true?" David took a deep breath. "Yes, sir. We have worked closely for the mission. I respect her deeply." "That respect must not turn into attachment," the commander said firmly. "We are guests here. The success of this mission depends on discipline. If emotions get involved, everything could fall apart." "I understand," David said calmly. "Good. Complete your final reports and prepare for recall in 1 week. The ship will depart soon." When the call ended, David stood in silence. He felt torn between two worlds. On one side was his duty to his people. On the other was the connection he had found with Arya, a connection that had changed him forever. That night, he went to the balcony where they often spoke. Arya was already there, watching the stars. "You heard?" she said quietly without turning. "Yes," he replied. "They want me to return." She turned to face him, her expression calm but her eyes filled with sadness. "I knew this day would come. You are bound to your people as I am bound to mine." He stepped closer. "Maybe our paths were meant to cross for a reason. Maybe this bond can show both our worlds that there is another way." Arya took a slow breath. "I believe that too. But belief alone may not be enough to change the hearts of others." "Then we must try," he said. "If we give up now, what have we learned?" She looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "You are right. The flame of connection is not meant to hide. It is meant to guide." For a moment, the crystals around them began to glow softly as if reacting to her words. The light spread across the balcony, wrapping them in a gentle aura. David could feel the energy around them, pure and calm. The next day, rumors spread through the city. Some said that the princess had chosen her path. Others whispered that a human had captured her heart. The council gathered again, their voices filled with debate. One elder warned, "If the princess continues this bond, she may break the sacred line. The balance of Allura could be lost." Another elder said, "Perhaps this is not a curse but a blessing. The humans carry a fire that we once lost. Maybe it is time to remember what it means to feel deeply." The queen listened in silence. After a long pause, she raised her hand for quiet. "Enough," she said. "The choice belongs to the princess. But she must understand that every choice carries weight." When the meeting ended, Arya stood before her mother. "I will not deny my heart," she said with calm strength. "But I will not abandon my duty either. I will prove that love and harmony can live together." The queen studied her daughter's face. "Then your path will not be easy. Yet if your heart is pure, Allura itself will protect you." That night, as the palace lights dimmed, Arya went to the same garden where the mirror of souls lay still. She looked into the water and her reflection shimmered once again. This time she saw herself standing beside David, surrounded by both humans and Allurans, their hands joined in unity. At that same moment, David stood at his window, looking toward the glowing towers of the palace. Though distance separated them, both felt the same thought rise within their hearts. No warning, no fear, and no tradition could stop what had already begun. The bond between them had become something more than emotion. It had become a promise to change the future of both their worlds. The morning after the council's warnings, the city of Allura seemed unusually quiet. Crystal towers reflected the soft light of the twin moons, giving the streets a serene glow. David walked with steady steps through the palace gardens. Every moment with Princess Arya felt heavier now. Both knew that duty and feelings were slowly coming into conflict, yet neither could deny the bond they had formed. Arya approached him, her silver hair shining in the gentle sunlight. "David," she said softly, "I know the council's words weigh on us, but I will not hide who I am or what I feel." David looked at her with quiet admiration. "Nor will I," he said. "We cannot control how others see our hearts. We can only act with honesty and courage." That day, the palace announced a grand celebration. The humans were invited to attend a festival in honor of the new alliance between Earth and Allura. It was meant to show unity and friendship. Streets were filled with shimmering lanterns, and floating crystal platforms carried musicians who played soft melodies. Children ran across the gardens, their laughter echoing in the crystal towers. David and Arya walked together through the festival. People stopped to greet them, some bowing with respect, others offering gifts. The festival was a reminder of what they were fighting to protect: peace and harmony between two worlds. Suddenly, alarms rang through the city. The lights of the festival flickered as a strange energy surged across the valley. People screamed and scattered, and David instinctively moved toward the source. Arya ran beside him. From the sky, unknown ships descended. Their surfaces glinted like black glass, and beams of energy shot down, striking buildings and gardens. Both humans and Allurans rushed to defend the city. David grabbed Arya's hand. "Stay close to me," he said. She nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "We will protect our people together." The battle began. The humans and Allurans worked side by side. David coordinated the human defense, guiding the energy shields to protect the citizens. Arya moved through the city with calm focus, using her command over the crystal energy to redirect attacks and heal minor injuries. At one point, a collapsing bridge threatened to trap a group of children. David rushed forward, lifting the youngest into his arms. Arya followed, her energy creating a glowing path that allowed the rest to escape safely. The two of them moved as one, their teamwork seamless, their bond stronger than ever. Hours passed, and the attackers were finally repelled. The ships fled into the darkness of space, leaving behind a city battered but alive. Both humans and Allurans cheered, their relief mixing with exhaustion. Amid the chaos, David and Arya found a quiet rooftop. The city below glowed with scattered light from damaged crystals, yet the calm of the night sky was comforting. "You never hesitate," Arya said softly, "even when everything is in danger." "I learned from you," David replied. "Your courage guides me." Arya's eyes glimmered. "Then our bond is stronger than fear." David took a deep breath, knowing the moment had come. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Arya, I cannot hide what I feel any longer. I want to spend my life with you. I want to wed you." Her silver eyes widened for a moment, then softened. The calm and strength that always surrounded her did not falter. She took a step closer, placing her hand gently on his chest. "My answer is yes," she said. The words hung in the air, clear and strong. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold still. The wind carried the faint hum of the crystals, as if the planet itself was celebrating. Below, the city continued to recover, unaware of the moment that would change its future. David smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known. Arya's hand remained on his chest, and he could feel the steady rhythm of her heartbeat matching his own. That night, a council member approached the queen. "Your Majesty, the princess has spoken. She has chosen her path." The High Queen nodded slowly. "Then we must respect her decision. The courage to follow the heart is a strength that must be honored, not feared." David and Arya spent the night in the crystal gardens. They walked along the paths where light floated above the stones, and every step seemed to celebrate their bond. Words were not always necessary. Their hearts spoke for them. "I never imagined I would feel this way," David said. "Not in my wildest dreams did I think a place so far from Earth could feel like home." Arya looked up at the twin moons, her hand holding his. "Home is not a place. It is where hearts are understood and protected." David smiled. "Then I am home with you." As the festival resumed the next day, Humans and Allurans celebrated not only survival but also hope. The story of their bravery during the attack spread quickly. Both races began to see that humans were not merely visitors but allies with courage and heart. In the days that followed, preparations began for a union ceremony that would honor the bond between David and Aria. The council worked alongside human envoys to ensure traditions were respected. The palace buzzed with activity, yet the princess and David often slipped away to the gardens, where they could simply be themselves. One evening, Aria guided David to the crystal tower, where the oldest and largest crystal in all of Allura stood. Its light was gentle and steady, reflecting the past and hinting at the future. "This crystal has watched over Allura for thousands of years," she said. "It has seen kings and queens, peace and war. Now it will witness something new, a bond between two worlds." David reached out and touched the crystal. Its surface was cool but alive with energy. "It feels as if it knows," he said softly. Aria nodded. "It feels what we feel. It approves of courage guided by love." They stood together, hands touching the crystal, and for the first time, the fear of judgment and duty felt lighter. They knew the road ahead would not always be simple, but they also knew that together they could face any challenge. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, reflecting the hope and courage of two hearts united. As they looked into each other's eyes, neither needed to speak. The choice of their hearts had been made, and it would shape the future of both humans and Allurans for generations to come. The morning of the grand ceremony dawned bright and clear over the crystal city of Allura. Twin moons shone faintly in the early sky, and the towers reflected the soft golden light. Citizens of Allura filled the streets and terraces, eager to witness a day that would be remembered for generations. Humans from the horizon also came, wearing simple ceremonial robes that matched the colors of the Alluran festival. The air was alive with excitement and gentle music that seemed to rise from the crystals themselves. David stood at the palace steps, adjusting his simple ceremonial robe. He felt both nervous and calm. The weight of what was about to happen was immense, yet his heart felt light. Today would not only unite him with Aria, but also show both civilizations that courage, honesty, and love could shape the future. Aria appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her silver hair flowing in the sunlight. She wore a robe of pale blue that glimmered like the sky, with crystal threads woven into the fabric. The crowd gasped at her beauty, but her eyes were fixed on David. When their eyes met, a quiet smile passed between them, speaking more than words ever could. The High Queen stood beside the oldest crystal in the city, its light reflecting softly across the crowd. "Today," she began, her voice calm yet powerful, "we celebrate not only a union of hearts but a union of worlds. May this bond serve as a reminder that understanding and courage are greater than fear and tradition." David stepped forward, his hand slightly trembling. He looked at Aria, who descended the staircase slowly, each step filled with grace. The citizens of Allura watched in silence, yet their eyes were filled with wonder and hope. As Aria reached the bottom, David took her hand in his. "Princess Aria," he said, his voice steady, "I stand before you not as a guest or an envoy, but as someone who wishes to walk beside you for the rest of our lives. I promise to honor you, protect you, and share my heart with you always." Aria's gaze softened. "David of Earth, I have seen your courage, your honesty, and the strength of your heart. I accept your promise, and I offer mine to you. Together we will serve our people and protect the harmony of our worlds." A soft hum rose from the crystals around them, a sound that vibrated through the city. The oldest crystal glowed brighter, casting light across the terraces and streets. It seemed to approve of the union, reflecting the joy and courage of those gathered. The High Queen stepped forward. "Let this bond be sealed not only by words, but by the energy of this world." She raised her hands and streams of light flowed from the crystal. David and Aria's hands glowed as the light wrapped around them. It was gentle but powerful, a visible sign of the connection between their hearts and the harmony of Allura itself. As the ceremony continued, humans and Allurans approached to offer blessings. Some brought gifts of simple beauty. Others shared words of encouragement. Children placed small crystal flowers at their feet, symbolizing hope for the future. David and Aria accepted each gesture with humility, knowing that this day belonged not just to them but to everyone who believed in unity. After the formalities, the couple was led to a terrace overlooking the city. The twin moons shone more brightly now, reflecting the promise of new beginnings. Arya looked at David and spoke softly. We have shown our hearts today, but our journey is only beginning. There will be challenges, yet I believe that together we can face anything. David nodded. I know. And whatever comes, we will protect each other and the bond we share. Today is not the end. It is the first step of a journey that will change everything. The citizens below cheered, and the crystal towers shone with light that seemed to dance in celebration. Humans and Allurans stood side by side, sharing the joy of a union that symbolized more than love. It symbolized understanding, courage, and hope. Over the following weeks, preparations for rebuilding and strengthening the alliance began. Humans shared technology that could help Allura harness energy without harm to nature, and the Allurans taught humans ways to live in balance with their environment. The work brought the two civilizations closer, and David and Arya worked as equals, leading by example. Even in the midst of busy days, the couple found moments of quiet. They would walk through the gardens where the light shimmered on crystal paths, or sit by the mirror of souls and watch the reflections of the city glow. In these moments, they remembered why they had chosen each other: courage, respect, and the unspoken understanding that connected their hearts. One evening, as the sky turned golden with the setting sun, Arya turned to David. Do you remember the first time you came to Allura? David smiled. I remember everything. The crystal forest, the storms, and the first time I saw you. She laughed softly. You were so nervous, but you tried to hide it. And you were calm. As if you had already known I would be here, he replied. They both laughed, and for a moment the worries of duty and expectation melted away. They were simply two beings who had found each other in a vast universe. As the months passed, the story of their union spread beyond Allura to other planets and star systems. Humans and Allurans became ambassadors of peace, showing that cooperation and understanding could flourish even among the most different of civilizations. David and Arya traveled together, sharing lessons of courage and harmony wherever they went. Yet no matter where they were, they always returned to Allura. The Crystal City remained their home, a place of learning, laughter, and love. The twins' moons shone over the palace towers, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, light could guide the way. Years later, as they stood on the balcony of the palace watching a new generation of humans and Allurans play together in the gardens, Arya turned to David. We have changed more than we could have imagined, she said. David took her hand. Yes, and it all began with a single choice: to follow our hearts. Arya smiled, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. And now, the future belongs to both our worlds together. The sun set, casting golden light across the city, and the crystal towers glowed with warmth. David and Arya watched as children ran across the gardens laughing freely. Humans and Allurans stood together in celebration, united not by fear or tradition but by courage, love, and understanding. In the quiet of that evening, the couple knew that they had achieved something greater than themselves. They had shown that humanity could reach for the stars not just with technology, but with heart. Their bond became a symbol of hope for the galaxy, a living example that courage, compassion, and connection could overcome any challenge. The world had changed, and it would continue to change, but David and Arya knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Their hearts were united, their purpose clear, and their legacy just beginning. As the twin moons reflected on the glowing crystal towers, the city of Allura shone as a beacon of hope. Across the stars, other civilizations began to hear the story of a human and an alien princess who dared to follow their hearts, and it inspired them to seek unity and understanding. David whispered quietly to Arya, We did it. Together we changed the future. Arya smiled, her eyes shining. Yes, together. And it will only grow brighter from here. Hand in hand, they looked out over the city, the celebration below and the stars above. Their journey had begun with a single step of courage, and now it would continue for generations. The story of their love was not only their own, but belonged to all who believed in the power of hope, unity, and the strength of the human heart. The world of Allura, the people of Earth, and countless others across the galaxy would remember this day as the moment when two hearts bridged the gap between worlds. It was a story that would be told for centuries, a story of courage, friendship, love, and the unyielding human spirit. And so, under the shining light of the twin moons, David and Arya stood together, ready to face the future side by side. Their hearts had chosen wisely, and their story had become legend.